Hey guys, how's it going? And welcome to the Rebel Pastor YouTube channel. Pastor Sky over here. I am currently in South Korea. I'm not sure how long I'm going to be here, but I'm here for a job at the moment, but super happy, super thankful that I can record this and just reach out to all of you guys out there in the YouTube world, all right? So if you like this type of content, this is the first time you're here, go ahead, subscribe, you can like, you can hit the notification bell, but most importantly, I would love it if you think other people would enjoy this type of content. Go ahead, share this with your friends and family. I'm sure they would enjoy it, and you'd probably know better than I would if they would enjoy it or not too. Our goal for this year, 2024, it is the end of, no, it's the middle of October already, right? It's the middle of October. We just have about 2.5 months left. Our goal, if God is willing, right, God willing, is 10,000 subscribers. We're hitting 6,000 right now, so we're right there. We're just about 4,000 more, which is, I don't know if it's right there, but still, we're almost getting there. And thank you, Chelsea, for that wonderful reminder that is not so much about the numbers we're trying to hit, but it's more about the quality of numbers. Are the people out there that we're reaching to from this channel, are they the quality people that are listening, that are receiving grace from the content from our channel too? So I'm hoping that we will get both, right? It kind of reminds me of... in the past, my pastor would tell me this. My pastor would tell me like, hey, what is more important? Is it more important to have a long prayer or a very, a high quality prayer? And, you know, a lot of times we think to ourselves, it's either one or the other. But when you really think about it, what do you really want when it comes to our relationship with God? Do you want quantity, or do you want quality, or do you want both? Would you rather have 5 seconds of just quality with God, or would you rather have 10 minutes, 10 hours, 10 years, or eternity, right? This is a thing that we kind of, we lose sight of it in our hearts and our minds. Is a lot of times we're thinking that it's either one or the other, but God, He wants us to have everything. Right? And when it comes to us, when it comes to this YouTube channel growing too, I thought to myself too, I was like, you know what, God, let's just bring quality people, and then, the numbers don't matter. But then I thought to myself but we do eventually want to reach large numbers of quality people. And, God's like, you know what? All those things will come through. Just focus on the quality, and eventually all the quality people are going to come into this channel also. So I am not as worried. I'm not worried. I'm just not as concerned as, oh my gosh, when will the numbers go up? But I really hope that it is one of the signs that people are really enjoying this content. Part of it is subscribers. Part of it is the likes. Part of it is the comments that come out of it too. And part of it is, and I would say probably the most important part is, when I pray about this channel to God, is God happy? And I think that's one of the big things that sometimes we forget. And as a guy myself, I think I get too much into statistics and, the analytics, right? It's like, oh, what are the numbers? What are this and what are that? But when I really thought about it, the most important thing would have to be, how happy is God with this channel? And I think that should be the number one thing. And I'll make sure that this becomes one of my biggest prayers is, God, are you happy with this channel? Because if God is happy with this channel, then this channel is going to automatically grow, right? So I hope that as you guys are out there, and I'm very thankful for all of you, the people that write in the comments that they're praying for this channel also, I'm very grateful, and I'm very thankful for all the support that you've given to me from the very, very beginning. Right? So it has been an amazing and wonderful week for me. I hope that, for me, I'm working at a Christian retreat place, and I have tons of people from foreign countries coming in. So, it just get to meet people from everywhere. I was meeting people from Europe, meeting people from Africa, a friend from Kenya came the other week, meeting people from the US and Canada and all these different places. And where were Singapore and Malaysia. So it's good to have all these visitors over here too. I don't know how long I'll be working here. I don't, right? Only God knows. And as long as I don't make too many mistakes and I get cut, right? But I really like being here in Korea. And here's one thing. I'm very grateful and thankful that this is a video and we're not talking face to face. You know why? Well, it's right now I'm recording this. It's like 11 p.m. at night, but I was getting a little bit hungry. So they have these like convenience stores that are open, and these Korean convenience stores have these like, cheap food that you can buy just to, kind of relieve your hunger. And there's something called the triangle Kimba. 삼각 Kimba, right? It's a triangle shaped like sushi roll, but it's not a roll, it's triangle shaped, right? And it's cheap. It's like $1.50, and it's huge. And for some reason, my favorite triangle kimbap is tuna and kimchi. And honestly, guys, it is one of the most delicious snack foods you can get. However, it is not a very good food to have good breath. So I want to just tell you guys, I am thankful that this is a video and you don't actually smell what my breath smells like right now, right? So kimchi tuna, that's what it smells like. I don't want you to even imagine what that smells like, but that's what it smells like. Now today I did want to go over this amazing parable. Right, so it was last week's Sunday message, right? So I went to church. The Sunday message was about this one parable from Matthew 25, verses 14 through 30. It's the parable of the talents, or the parable of the bags of gold. Very, very similar. Okay, so here's the parable of talents, the parable of bags. We'll call it the bags of gold. And I like bags of gold better, since talent, we might get confused with talent as in my talent in sports, my talent in music, but a talent is a unit of measure back in the Bible times. And if you have a talent of gold, they say that for a regular worker in Israel, it is 20 years of wages. So this is not small money. If you were to take just someone who works today, right, they're going to make about $50,000 a year. If you times that by 20, what is that going to be, right? That's supposed to be like over the average wage in America right now, the average is like over 60,000 US. So we're talking about 20 years. That's going to be what? It's going to be over $1 million, right? 60,000 times 10. Yeah, it's going to be over $1 million, right? So imagine, this is a parable of the $1 million bag of gold kind of thing, right? So I like it better when we say bags of gold because it makes more sense to us than saying, talents, right? So remember that 20 years of wages, guys. So there's a reason I want to talk about this parable is because of the message behind it. And here's the thing. A lot of times when we read the Bible or read these parables, we kind of just look for the message that it comes from, but sometimes we forget the context of where this parable actually comes from. And the greatest theme of the parable of the bags of gold is the Lord's second coming. And you're like, what? Like, it's the Lord's second coming? Yeah. I've told you guys many times before is Matthew chapter 24 and 25 are both the chapters of the Lord's second coming. So let me get into the context of Matthew 25, right? So let's first start off with Matthew 24. So in Matthew 24, what happens is the disciples come to Jesus and they ask him for, hey, what are the signs of the Lord's second coming? Right? So in verse 3 it says, as Jesus was sitting on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately. Tell us, they said, when will this happen, and what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age? Right? So they're like, Jesus, tell us what are the signs of the Lord's second coming? Right? Now, remember this. So how do I connect chapter 24 and 25? You got to remember that the New Testament originally did not have any chapters and verses, right? It was just one long manuscript. It was only like 400 years ago in 1560, the Geneva Bible, when this Bible came out, it was the first Bible that had this widely accepted chapter and verse system, right? So you think about this, guys. The New Testament didn't have chapters and verses, but it was only recently that this actually came in. Right? So the reason I'm bringing this up is chapter 24 is all about the signs of the Lord's second coming. But when you look at Matthew chapter 25, verse 1, this is the parable of the 10 virgins, right? So sometimes we think chapters are separated because it's showing that there's another or a different talk. But what's the first thing it says in Matthew 25, verse 1? At that time, the kingdom of heaven will be like 10 virgins, right? So what is Jesus saying? At that time. What time? He's talking about all the things that he just talked about in Matthew 24, right? It's connecting the two, which means it's about the Lord's second coming, right? So to understand the context of Matthew chapter 25, it's about the Lord's second coming, right? And what will the time of the Lord's second coming be like, right? So the question I'm going to give to you right now is, what is that time going to be like? So learning Matthew 24 is going to give us, Matthew 24 and 25 will give us some types of hints of what the Lord's second coming, what that time is actually going to be like, right? So let's start off with Matthew 24, verse 36. And Jesus says, but about that day or hour, no one knows, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father. What is Jesus saying? Guess what? The first thing you need to know about the Lord's second coming is no one's going to know the exact day or hour. They're not. Only God knows. God has set that time, and only God knows and no one else. Let's move further, and this is going to be even more interesting. Jesus compares the time of the Lord's second coming to whose time? He compares it to the time of Noah. So think about this, guys. Learning about the story of Noah becomes even more important to us because Jesus says in Matthew 24, verse 37 to 39, that the Lord's second coming will be just like the time of Noah, right? What does it say in verse 37, 39? As it was in the days of Noah, so will it be at the coming of the Son of Man. For in the days before the flood, people were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, up to the day Noah entered the ark. And they knew nothing about what would happen until the flood came and took them all away. That is how it will be at the coming of the Son of Man. Right? So what did Jesus just say? Jesus said that the Lord's second coming, that time will be just like the time of Noah, which means learning about the story of Noah becomes even more important to us, especially even now, us who are waiting for the Lord's second coming. It'll be exactly the same. That is the best reference we have, which means we got to reverse all the way back to Genesis chapter 6, right? Genesis chapter 6, it's a story of the flood, well, 6 and 7, right? And it tells us a situation of the Lord's second coming, right? So now we're realizing there is a huge significance of the story of Noah and this flood, and it's greater than what we actually thought. When we're younger, what do we think? When we're younger, the story of Noah was for Sunday school, right? Because there's animals and all the kids are like, yay, bears, tigers, rah, right? So when you're young, you went through this story, you saw a rainbow, it was all happy, you know, it was like happy and joyful. We're like, wow, God gave us the rainbow, it was so cool kind of thing, right? But as we grow older, we have to realize that story means a lot more than it did to us in the past. What does it mean? It means that when you start to think about the story of Noah as an adult, and with a much more mature mind, you're not thinking about just all the different animals and the rainbow that pops up in the end. You think about thousands and thousands and thousands of people dying by drowning. And it's not just older men, it is young men and children and women and pregnant women, babies. They all died from the flood. And that should make us think a lot more deep, like, whoa, I never thought about it in that way, right? So that's something that I hope that as we mature, we can think about this story in a more real way, like, oh, yeah, it is a very, very serious time. And when we see what Jesus said, we just read that the time of the Lord's second coming will be just like the time of Noah. So let's quickly get into this story. So let's turn to Genesis chapter 6, verse 1 and 2, and let's see what that time was actually like. It says, when human beings, what did they do? When human beings began to increase in number on the earth and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful and they married any of them they chose, right? Which kind of references back to Matthew chapter 25, verse 38. And what does that talk? What does it say? It says that just like the time of Noah, people were marrying and giving in marriage as they wanted. Right? What does that mean? It means just like the time of Noah, people were not thinking about God, just marrying and giving in marriage. Their thoughts were not focused on God. They lived their life doing what they wanted. I want to do this. I want to marry them. I want to do this. Not having God in their hearts, not having God in their minds, but doing as they want instead of doing it together with God, right? You even think about this today. When you look at America, what's the divorce rate? I was watching this podcast of a divorce lawyer, and he said, right, I think at that, he was saying in the podcast, the divorce rate's around 54, 55%. But then he said the actual number is higher. It's like 70 to 80% divorce rate. And, for me, I was just like, no, that's not possible because I don't see that many divorces happening. And he said, oh, no. It doesn't mean that they actually divorce. So this divorce lawyer said that 15 to 20% of people that come to a divorce lawyer decide not to divorce because it's too complicated to separate the money. So people who are unhappy with each other choose to still live with each other in unhappiness. And that's, I think, 15 to 20%. So the real number of divorce is higher than 55. It's more like 70 to 80%. And that's a scary thing when you think about it. But you got to think to yourself this. How many people choose their husbands or wives asking God, with God in their heart, genuinely saying, God, is this the person? God, I only want to do what you want. God, if this is your will, I will marry this person. I do think this person is right, but I really want to know, God, what you think. God, is there something that's going to go wrong? God, please tell me. God, I want to know. And that's something that I do think that we have to think about today and even think about ourselves right now. When you make decisions in your life, how much do you pray to God to lead you? Do you just pray once or twice, 1 minute, 2 minutes, and just kind of like, I guess I prayed, so then God's going to be with me anyways? Or do you pray until you get that confirmation, right? How important is God in your decision making? Or is it more of, well, I believe in God, and you know what? I have good faith. I go to church. I pay my tithing. You know what? God's going to be with me no matter what decision I make. And when you think about that, that's a very selfish and humanistic way of thinking of our relationship with God. A relationship is two people that converse. A relationship is two people that really work together to find an answer, right? To think that because you believe or have faith in God that He's just going to bless you with whatever you do, I think is really arrogant, or that's a life that's not having a true relationship with God. Because if that's the case, well, think about this. Well, if God's going to be with you no matter what you do anyways, then why would God give us verses like Matthew chapter 7, verse 7 and 8? It's like, ask and it'll be given to you. Seek and you'll find. Knock and the door will be open, right? For everyone who asks receives. You seek, you find. You knock, the door is going to be open. Why would God even tell us to ask Him, to get an answer from Him? God's telling us is because He has an answer. And what Jesus says is the Lord's second coming, what the people are going to be like at that time is they are going to be more into themselves than they are into God. When you go further in Genesis chapter 6, and we're going to verse 3, what does it say? It says, then the Lord said, my spirit will not contend with humans forever, for they are mortal. Their days will be 120 years, right? Now, one of the basic confusions some people have here is people think that this means that human beings will not live longer than 120 years. But guess what, guys? Go ahead, look in the Guinness Book of World Records. There are people that have lived past 120. It's not talking about how long human beings will live. It's talking about how much time is left before the flood actually comes, which means there's a set time, just like we read in Matthew 24, verse 36, saying that only God knows the time. There is a set time. It's just that we don't know. A set time is there, but we don't know. And when you look in the Bible, and you're going to see that God does have set times. He does, right? For instance, the flood, 40 days and 40 nights. 40 years wandering the desert of Zin, 400 years enslaved in Egypt. The hard part is when you're living in real time, no one knows, right? No one really knows. Like, oh, there's only 38 years left. Oh no, only 36 more years of wandering. You're just wandering. But when the set time comes, God sets us free, right? Only when the time passes, you will look back and see that God had set a time for a punishment or a set time for what we're supposed to do. So you see that even in the time of Noah, there was a set time, which also means that, yeah, there is a set time for the Lord's second coming. There is. The problem is, or the issue is, only God knows and we don't. And that's why the Bible says he comes like a thief in the night. Let's move on to Genesis chapter 6, verse 9. And it says, Noah was a righteous man, blameless among the people of his time, and he walked faithfully with God. And when you hear about Noah's story, it's all about Noah building the ark, Noah bringing the animals, Noah sharing with the people, everyone, the flood is coming, so come out, come into the boat, come into the ark. And you see that just like the time of Noah, this Lord's second coming will be similar. There is a person that is sent, and this person comes to give the words of God to help us so that we will not get judged by the flood, right? So in the same way too, when the Lord's second coming comes, we also expect some type of end of the world event to happen. Just like the time of Noah was end of the world event that's about to happen. They're very, very similar times. And what Jesus says is, people will not know that that time has come even to the moment where Noah gets into the ark and closes the door. Can you imagine that the rain starts coming? People are just gonna be like, it's just rain. And it's like starting to flood. Not a big deal. It's been like this before. But only when it's too late do they finally realize, I can't believe Noah was telling the truth, right? And at the time of Jesus 2,000 years ago, same thing happened. Salvation had come, and Jesus, a person in the flesh, delivered the message just like Noah did to tell people to come into the ark or to be saved from the judgment, right? Noah brought people into an actual ark, an actual boat, but Jesus told people to believe in him, which means they came into the ark of Christ. And that's what it's going to be like at the time of the Lord's second coming. The judgment of the last days will come, and it'll be just like this. Now, Matthew 25, verses 14 to 30, it is the parable that we're actually going to focus on of how we should be. What is the mentality? What is the attitude and actions of the believers in Christ at the time of the Lord's second coming, right? So let's take a look at what the story is like, the background of the story. It says, Matthew 25, verse 14 and 15. Again, it'll be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted his wealth to them. To one he gave 5 bags of gold, to another 2 bags, and to another 1 bag. Remember, each of these bags are worth $1 million, right? Each of them were given according to their ability. And then the master went on his journey. Now, who is the man, or who is the owner, the man going on his journey? That is Jesus, right? What does that mean? It means that Jesus came. So the owner came to the earth. He died on the cross. He resurrected and he ascended into heaven, right? So we know this, that he went away, right? Jesus went away, right? But we also know that before he left, he says, I am coming back. So here is the story, this Jesus talking about himself. Guess what? Owner came. The owner's going to go off on a journey. I'll be back, guys. Second coming is coming, right? But I'm going to leave you with something. And he gives bags of gold to each of his 3 servants depending on their ability, right? Which means that he obviously trusts and loves his 3 servants. Why? Who the heck would give his wealth to people that he wouldn't love and trust? These were the people that he loved and trusted. Now, what about today? Right? So we're at the point where Jesus has already left and we're expecting him to come back again. But then now we're left with bags of gold according to our abilities. So in this story, we see that these bags of gold are very precious and valuable, right? Bags of gold. And when you start reading the story, it's about you taking it and making more money with it, right? You're making more bags of gold with it, right? So just like money, you can use it many different ways, good and bad. You can use it just to use it on yourself and do whatever you want, or you can do what? You can actually use it to make even more money, gain more things, right? So today, God has given each and every one of us this talent, this bag of gold. But what does it mean, this bag of gold? What is this precious and most valuable thing that God has given to us? And it is life itself. Your life is the most valuable and precious thing that you have right now. And you carry it with you wherever you go. It is your life. But then you might think to yourself, is like, wait, Pastor Sky. But everyone has life. Both the people with faith and without faith. So does it mean that everyone has a bag of gold? Technically, yes. Right? Technically, yes. But let's take it in terms of people who believe in God. All of us have been given the most precious and valuable bag of gold, which is our lives. Why? Why is it that valuable and precious? Because it is eternal. We are the ones that are not condemned. We are the ones that have been saved from suffering and death. Our life is that precious. Our life is that valuable because we escaped death, right? And, and here's the thing. Not only do we have this valuable and precious bag of gold, our life, we also know the path to eternal life because we received it first. So what does it mean to gain more bags of gold or to gain more life? Let's take a look at Matthew 25, verses 16 through 18. And it says, "The man who had received 5 bags of gold went at once and put his money to work and gained 5 bags more. So also the one with 2 bags of gold gained 2 more, but the man who had received 1 bag went off, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money." Right? So people were given different amounts of gold according to their ability. And the question we give to you is, what do you do with your life? What do you do with your bag of gold? What have you done with it until this day? Right? Have you gone out and gained more? Or have you just dug it in the ground where it's hidden and it does absolutely nothing? What does it mean to live a life, to gain more bags of gold? And we're going to turn to Luke chapter 8, verses 16 through 18. And what does it say? It says, Luke chapter 8, 16 through 18. It says, "No one lights a lamp and hides it in a clay jar or puts it under a bed. Instead, they put it on a stand so that those who come in can see the light. For there is nothing hidden that will not be disclosed, and nothing concealed that will not be known or brought out into the open. Therefore, consider carefully how you listen. Whoever has been given more, whoever does not have, even what they think they have will be taken from them." Right? What's it talk about here? It talks about being a lamp, having that light. Don't hide that light in a clay jar or put it under your bed where no one can see it. Put it on a stand where it should be so that those who come in can see the light. Right? What does it mean to not hide your light? It's talking about your life in Christ. Don't dig your bag of gold, your life into the ground and forget about it and hide it so no one can see it. Your life was made to be seen. What do you mean by this? Does it mean to flaunt, to boast, to brag? Oh, look what I did. I'm so righteous. No. Your life was meant to be seen, to produce more life, right? The genuine life you're supposed to live. Let people see God through you so that they may give glory to God also. People are going to look at your life. You know what they're going to, if they can see God, they're going to say, man, there's something different about this person. This person is living a life. When I look at them, I want to live that type of life too. And one day they'll also turn and say, you know what? I'm going to turn to God also. And they'll turn to God. People are looking for light, especially in a world of darkness. They live in a world where they love the darkness because that's all the world gives them. Look at John chapter 3, verse 19. What does it say? It says, "This is the verdict. Light has come into the world, but people loved darkness instead of light because their deeds were evil." One of the biggest problems in this world is the world only gives darkness to people. So when the people only see darkness, they get used to darkness. And when the light comes, it's too bright and they can't get used to it and they run away from the light. People are in the darkness in this world. And they need to see the light of God. They need to see the hope. They need to see the real life that they're supposed to live. But if they can't see the light in you, they're gonna think there's not another way to live their life. Where else will they go? They have no choice but to remain in the darkness. Remember, we're called by God not to hide the light, not to live the way we want. We are called to truly shine the light of God to all people. And it's not a fake light. This is a genuine light where we try to live righteously. We try to do what is best. We try to live by God's words. It's genuine. And what's going to happen? If we continue just to live like this, one day, the owner will come back and he's going to ask for an account of what he's given us. In Matthew chapter 25, verse 19 and 20, what does it say? "The man who had received 5 bags of gold brought the other 5. 'Master,' he said, 'you entrusted me with 5 bags of gold. See, I have gained 5 more.'" And then you're going to hear the words you've always wanted to hear from Jesus. And what is it? Matthew 25, verse 21 says, his master replied, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share in your master's happiness." This is what we want. This is what we want to hear Jesus say to us, isn't it? Good job. Well done, my good and faithful servant. Or we could be on the other side, where we just kind of lived our own life. We didn't really care about what God wanted. We just made sure that I had enough money, made sure I had a place to stay, made sure I had food, made sure I had this or that. Just trying to get by, living the bare basics of faith, going to church, make myself feel like I'm a believer, just doing enough, get by as a believer or as a person of faith. And when the owner comes back after that long trip, in Matthew 25, verse 24 and 25, what does Jesus say? "The man who had received 1 bag of gold came. 'Master, I knew that you're a hard man, harvesting where you have not sown, gathering where you have not scattered seed. So I was afraid and went out and hid your gold in the ground. See, here is what belongs to you.'" And this is when Jesus comes back. He's like, "I died for you to give you a life of salvation, and you did nothing with it. You just dug it in the ground, and you're the same as you've always been." And then in Matthew 25, verse 26, the master replied, "You wicked, lazy servant. You knew that I harvest where I have not sown and gather where I have not scattered seed." And then in verse 30, what does it say? "Throw that worthless servant outside into the darkness where there'll be weeping and gnashing of teeth." Now, it does sound harsh. It does, right? You're like, wow, God, that's a little bit harsh. It's a little bit, is that really fair? Wow, this is unjust. He gave you the bag of gold back. But here's the thing. When do people complain and say, "God, is that fair? Oh God, why is it like this? Oh God, why is it like that?" People only feel like that when they are in that situation. It's when you're on the losing end. This is when you complain, right? It's like, when you have a test or you have a big project, only when the time comes, you're like, "Oh, we didn't have enough time. We didn't have enough this. We didn't have enough that," while other project teams are giving in their work because they had enough time. But you're the only one complaining. Why? Because you didn't do it. You didn't do it in time. Right? The only time you complain is when you are on the losing end. It's, basically when you're the one getting judged, right? You gotta think about this. The only time we start to think that something is too harsh is because we think we're not ready. We think we haven't done enough. But I'm gonna tell you right now, if you were actually ready, if you really put those bags of gold to use and made 5 more, would you complain, or would you be anticipating the owner to come back and like, I'm going to show you how much I love you and how much you should have trusted me because I've made 5 more? You would be waiting in anticipation. You wouldn't complain. You'd be happy to see the owner come back so you can show him what you did. Your reaction just depends on if you did what you were supposed to do or not. That's going to be the biggest thing, right? That's going to be the biggest thing that's going to determine what your reaction is going to be when Jesus comes back. And this is the thing. This is a warning. This is either a blessing or a curse. That Jesus is telling us right now is that when the Lord said, when I come back again, you don't know when it's going to happen. Because if you did, you would all be lazy and you would wait for the last year to do all the righteousness and say, oh, look, I was ready. But our life wasn't meant to be, oh, the last year of your life, you're going to get ready. No, we're supposed to live our entire lives in faith and in love with God and in Christ. Because if we live a life that is in love with God, it doesn't matter when He comes back because you're always going to be ready anyways. The parable of the bags of gold. This is what's happening today. And it's going to be, you have to look at yourselves now is, are you ready? Are you ready? Jesus died on the cross. He resurrected. He ascended into heaven. And before He left, He said, I am coming back. I am. When's He coming? Now? Next year? 10 years? 30 years? No one knows the day or the hour. But that's not the point. The point is, be ready until I come back. And I hope that's something that we'll recognize and realize from this story of the parable of the bags of gold. And it'll be something that will really make us think about ourselves too. Okay? So there it is, guys. That is the parable of the bags of gold, or the parable of the talents. Hope you guys really enjoyed that. I hope it's something that kind of really strikes your heart and makes you realize and think more deeply of what we should be doing. But most importantly, I hope it helps you along in your life of faith, or for those who are starting, or people who are probably listening to this for the very first time, or even just learning about Jesus for the first time too. All right, everyone, enjoy your week. Have an amazing, awesome day. Make sure to subscribe, to like, to comment, and to share as much of this content as possible. And we'll see you guys again next week on the Rebel Pastor YouTube channel. Everyone, this is Pastor Sky signing out. We'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.
Rebel, never settle, I raise the level. It's time to go, sky's the limit, it's me against the world. Rebel pastor, ooh.